Privileged to be here among you all. I'm going to go back to the beginning of my journey with my daughter, and this started in 2003. So Niamh was diagnosed with a condition called juvenile idiopathic arthritis. So juvenile because the onset was before the age of 16, idiopathic because we're not too sure exactly what ignited it at that time, and arthritis because it's a very unfortunate name, unfortunate to give to JIA, because it's not really arthritis as we know it in adults. It's an autoimmune disease that attacks the joints and the organs and sometimes the eyes. So Niamh's diagnosis came out of the blue. She woke one morning with a really swollen knee, and we went straight to our doctor, who said that she probably had growing pains and she had fallen the day before. So this probably went on for about a year, and I kept insisting, look, there's something not right, there's something not right. Even my dad commented that her shoes looked too tight. Why was she walking funny? She seemed to be limping. So eventually I got sent to my local A&E, and I was just so lucky that I met a trainee who had worked in Crumlin Hospital and had seen cases like this. And he said to me, look, I'm not 100% sure, but this looks very like juvenile arthritis. So I went to Crumlin Hospital, and at that stage we had no paediatric rheumatologists in Ireland. So I met a paediatrician who had an interest, and he explained to me what Niamh had and what the course of treatment would be. And I educated myself on the disease. I went on Dr. Google. Don't go on Dr. Google. You will see the worst cases. But I had to educate myself. There was nobody else to educate me. So I became her voice, and 15 years later, I still am her voice. She's starting to find her voice now that she's moved to adult services. But I was continuing on autopilot dealing with the disease. And for people who don't know a lot about JIA, it can be very debilitating. She wakes up in the morning very stiff and sore. So I used to lift her into the bath to do her physio and get her moving. And then we would get her to school. She'd probably go in late. She couldn't even open her lunchbox at one stage. She was in a wheelchair for a couple of years. So it's been really, really, really tough on us as a family. And this is Niamh a couple of years ago now. She won't like this picture, it's a little bit old. She's 19 now. So this was, for 2 years we travelled to Crumlin. Niamh was on biologic infusions, and we were administered in Crumlin Children's Hospital. But I rang my local hospital in Clonmel, and I said to them, look, my daughter's doing her junior cert. I really feel that we could have our infusions in Clonmel. You know, she's doing quite well on them. And they wouldn't give it to me in writing, but over the phone they said to me, 3 people won't have their chemo this week if your daughter has an infusion. So, you know, we have to look after our chemo patients first. So as a parent, that was devastating for me to hear. I certainly did not want to take anyone off chemo, but I also felt that my daughter needed her infusion to keep her mobile, but more importantly, keep her in school. So we had to take a day out of our week, a day out of the week for 2 years, which was absolutely exhausting. And for Niamh's sibling Caoimhe, it was a really, really tough time, those 2 years. Early on in Niamh's diagnosis, I remember finding this quote, and it has stayed with me ever since. You may not be a parent of a child with arthritis, so awareness may not seem like a big priority. The day before my child was diagnosed, I wasn't an arthritis parent either. So then I got quite motivated, and I met loads of amazing families in Crumlin, and I met one particular lady in Cork, and together we set up a Facebook forum, which just grew and grew. The more families I met in Crumlin, the more people I added to the Facebook forum. And about 4 years ago, our consultant, we now have 2 paediatric rheumatologists in Crumlin, and one of them said to me, would you set up a group or a charity to help me raise awareness, because I'm battling for services because nobody understands this disease. So I had a thought about it and went home and talked to my family, because I knew it would take a lot of work. So they said, yes, go for it. So I had some amazing people from the forum who came on board to give a hand. But the main reason we did set it up was to raise awareness, to support families, to advocate for better services, which unfortunately 4 years on, we're still advocating for better services. But I also needed a focus to help me deal with Niamh's diagnosis. I had given up work to look after Niamh as our full-time carer, so I needed something to get me out of bed in the morning. It's a volunteer charity, and we've built an amazing team. The financial impact of setting up a charity was a hard burden for the first couple of years, not to mention the red tape and the form filling. But eventually, 4 years on, we're here. We're a fully fledged charity. We have a dedicated committee. and we have an absolute amazing amount of parent reps around the country. So our biggest challenge in the charity is that we now have a 3-year waiting list in Crumlin's Children's Hospital for children to be seen. And as we know with arthritis, early intervention is the key. You don't want children with joint deformities, you don't want children with severe uveitis. You want these children seen in a timely manner and put on drugs. This has been a huge learning curve for me, and something I didn't think about when I was setting up a charity is that I would have to learn how to deal with Crumlin management. I'd have to learn how to deal with the HSE, the Department of Health, and that now has led me on to having to deal with TDs, which is a totally different side of life I never thought about getting involved with. But we have to approach our local TDs as parents and get them to push for us. And obviously we're starting from a point where nobody understands what this disease is. So we have to educate everybody on what it is first, and then they might come on board and help us fight for services. And in 2016, we held a press conference in Buswells, and we did a march outside Leinster House to try and help awareness and improve the services. So on my journey, a huge turning point for me was when I got involved on a European level. So I sit on the BSPAR, the British Society Parent Forum, and I also chair a group called ENCA, which is the European Network of Children with Arthritis. Now, ENCA is supported by PRES, which is the Paediatric Rheumatology European Society, and they bring together healthcare professionals, scientists, patients, carers, and we're very lucky in ENCA to have a seat on the PRES Council, so our voice is quite loud. I find on the European stage there's definitely less of a them and us. I'm integrated into conversations. I'm part of a panel that comes up with research ideas. I do find in Ireland patients and carers are not valued as much. It's been a huge challenge for me personally to get my voice heard, to get our voice heard as a charity, to get into meetings, to conferences. But thank God that is changing, and I have definitely faced lots of challenges, but things are changing, which is great. And a big passion of mine is transition from paediatric to adult services. It's a huge challenge in any disease, but particularly for juvenile arthritis. You're coming from Crumlin Children's Hospital, where we all attend, you're moving to adult services. So I've heard a great speaker called Professor Stephen Ball talk numerous times on transition, and I love these slides that he used, that you're moving from an environment where it's Bob the Builder into an environment where it's the homes and gardens are on the table. And the first time I went to adult services with my daughter, we were sitting in the waiting room, and I said to Neve, because she was 16, I said, everyone's going to expect me to get up when the name is called and not you. So when she was called, everybody just looked at her, could not believe that this child was in adult rheumatology. So Stephen Ball also describes the problem of a square peg in a round hole. The hammering is hard work, and you risk damaging the peg. And this is sometimes what happens in transition. So for us personally, the transition happened at Neve's. It started from 14, but at 16, they said to her, look, Neve, you have to leave Crumlin Hospital now. It was a hugely upsetting time for Neve. Her disease was not in a good way. She was heading into a leave cert. She was extremely stressed about the move and the leave cert. But we moved to adult services, and we struggled with that move, and we really still do. We had to move. We went to one service that didn't work out. So we're now in another service, and we're under the care of the CUH and an amazing rheumatology team there. And Neve is much happier now, but it was a huge change. And as part of ICANN, we have been working on transition. We involved all stakeholders in 3 focus groups last year to get feedback and opinions from everybody, adult services, paediatric services, patients that had gone through both, to see what we could do to help them. So we developed a weekend where we had expert speakers come and speak on the move. We had 12 families. We funded this ourselves. We had an outside facilitator called Olive O'Connor to come and evaluate it and prepare us for it. And we ran it a couple of months ago. And we just had our evaluation the other day, and some of the comments were amazing from some of the families. I'll just read you a couple here that we got back in the feedback. So empowering, exciting, knowledge, beneficial, encouraging, blown away, positive and grateful. And I think that's it when you're living with a disease like JIA, is people just don't understand it. So when you're with other families who really get it, you feel really empowered and you find your voice. And it starts there, and I'm trying to encourage our mentors. Out of the workshop, we've identified children 18 and over who would like to stay as mentors and give peer support to the younger teens coming up. And for them, it's amazing, and for me to see them grow and grow is just hugely beneficial from that weekend. Now, some of the research I've been involved in, and at the time I didn't really understand what I was involved with the first one with WebPark, so I was asked to come on board maybe about a year and a half ago, and this is before I did the iPosy course, which really opened my mind to exactly what was expected of me. But the WebPark is a randomised controlled trial which has been undertaken in the City University London. It's looking at the effectiveness of a specifically designed website for parents and children with JIA. So the aim of this trial is to evaluate the benefits to parents of having access to a specifically designed website for parents of children with JIA in combination with standard care when compared to standard care alone. This is a multi-central randomised controlled trial. Once baseline questions are received, parents will be randomised by household to either the intervention or the control arm. Now, I do these by teleconferencing. I find that extremely difficult. I've never met anyone before this. I have to Google them to see who they are, where they come from. At the first teleconference, no one introduced themselves, so I found that extremely hard. I've had to ask them to clarify terms on different occasions. I've had to email afterwards and ask exactly what they meant. I definitely felt out of my depth and certainly not part of the team. But then things changed for me when I did the iPosy course, and we've just literally finished it. And I know I've got my great friend Kay is here, who did the iPosy course with me, who runs a great support group for melanoma patients. And we actually went to school together, which is so odd. We never thought we'd end up back together. So we started the course. Well, first of all, I applied for it, and I really didn't think I would get it. And I know Kay applied for it as well, but never told me, and I never told her. Because we really didn't think we were the people that, I don't know who they were looking for, but I certainly didn't think it was me. So I applied, but then I got it, and I was just so excited. I just thought, this is what I need. I need a bit of direction. I need to know exactly what I have time for and I don't have time for, because I have to prioritise what's important to me and the JIA community. So the iPosy programme is for lay people on medicines, research and development, and it's been inspired by iPosy's continued involvement in the pan-European programme UPATI. So there were 3 modules. Module 1 was understanding clinical trials. Module 2 was regulatory affairs, medicinal product safety and pharmacovigilance. Module 3 was health technology assessment principles and practices. The programme content was mainly online on a dedicated e-learning platform called Moodle, and I had to negotiate that first before I could even do anything. We had 6 face-to-face training sessions, and we had access to a programme coordinator and peer support from fellow UPATI fellows. We also had discussion forums and were given specific tasks to complete. So 3 forms of assessments we had were multiple choice quizzes at the end of each week or lesson, multiple choice quizzes at the end of each module, and we needed to get 70% in order to obtain the cert for that module. So active participation in the weekly discussion task via the module-specific online forum as well as face-to-face meetings was needed. I can't really stress enough how important this course was to me, and it came at the right time. The amazing people I met on the course from all disease types. I'd lived in my world of JIA for 15 years, and I really hadn't ventured outside it. So this was the first time that I had met and listened to other patients from different diseases. And really, we all have the same problems when it comes down to it. I must say I really enjoyed the clinical trials module. It was extremely hard, but for me as a layperson, I just learned so much from it. And if anybody is thinking about doing this course, I would hugely, hugely say go for it. Go for it. If I can do it, believe me, any carer patient can do it. And I want to say a huge thanks to Derek Mitchell, who I know couldn't make it today, and to iPosy for putting this together. And now another project is recently that I was asked to get involved in was the UCD Patient Voice and Arthritis Research. So this is a really great initiative, and I attended the first meeting on the 1st of December in Dublin. The UCD Centre for Arthritis Research aims to improve PPI into their standard research process. So on the night, there were 3 schemes proposed: formal participation, casual participation, and patient educators. And since then, a newsletter has been published called Newsroom, and at the moment, they're looking for an under 18 to do a logo for them. So Emma Doris, I had actually been interacting with on Twitter, and she was the lady who put it all together. And it's giving us a voice as patients and carers, and we're here from the very start before anything has happened. They want to know what we want to do, what direction we want to take it in. So I think that's what's made the difference with this one for me. And then something else that I've recently been involved with, and I see Siobhan O'Higgins over there, is just amazing. And it's called the Teens Taking Charge. So this is intended to help teens take control of their own JIA management. And it was developed by Jennifer Stinson and has been used in the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto. And I was approached again on Twitter by people who had told me about it. And I had made contact with Siobhan and Lena and also Jennifer. And this project is amazing, and they've got a youth panel also involved, which I think is so important because their voice is the one that will drive it. And just to finish up, just to say that from my point of view, research gives parents hope, and we all need hope in our lives. I would not have got out of bed 15 years ago if I had not got hope. And this is continuing. Now, we're very lucky in rheumatology because we've had a lot of research, especially into drugs, in the last 20 years in comparison to other subsets. But we still need to educate parents on the importance of involvement in research. And I know when you're in the middle of it, it's a very hard thing to do. But I would be encouraging parents to give a hand wherever they can. And when we're involved, we benefit from learning more about the disease. It's great for personal development. We enjoy it and we get great satisfaction from it. And just to say, the barriers for me personally were the use of medical jargon was just horrendous. I just had to, really learn and ask questions. Acronyms was another thing that I had to overcome, and obviously a limited budget to attend meetings. But definitely together we can make a huge difference. So thank you. Thanks again.